Tim, good to see you,
Hi,
buddy.
man. Good to see you. Good to see you. It's been
How's
not that long, but
it's
it's been
not
fun.
that long, yeah, yeah. How are
For
the Netherlands today?
yeah. Pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, it's like a decent summer weather where it's neither too hot nor too cold nor rainy, which
Oh,
is
you love
rare.
that. We're enjoying similar weather in Seattle at the moment. It's gorgeous outside. Maybe I should see if I can move my setup to the backyard for this stream, but a little late for that now.
I do have surprisingly many video calls with Jente on our team, who is then somewhere in a sunny back garden. Just I don't know. He has a virtual background, but you can very much see and feel the outside air and sun on his face when
So,
he
so
video
s-
calls.
some people put up a virtual background because they're like, I'm in like an ugly room, or I don't want to show off, the state of my apartment or whatever. And he just doesn't want people to be jealous that he's in such a nice spot while they're in like a
Absolutely.
fluorescent lit office.
So, well, different standards. But
Yeah, yeah. I really should take my laptop into the backyard more often. Oh well.
I live on the 11th floor, so you're already one step ahead of me.
There you go.
In
Do you
that.
have like a rooftop deck on your building? I guess probably not with an 11-story building. That's usually shorter buildings that would have like a rooftop hangout area.
In theory, there is one, but it's not publicly accessible because someone once hoisted like a jacuzzi on top of the roof, so it's pretty much theirs.
Sounds like they should have just made the jacuzzi a permanent installation.
You'd think to be like good neighbors and social, but no.
Once when
What's
I
that?
was in college, a friend of mine was like, "Hey, we can open the top floor of the dorm room was like a machine closet for like the elevators and other HVAC systems and stuff, but it had a path out onto the roof where no one was supposed to go." But he's like, "It's actually really easy to pick this door lock with just like use the student ID, like a credit card
Oh, yeah,
basically,
yeah.
and managed to wiggle that in there and open the door." So we went out on the roof on a lovely night and had a great view that we wouldn't have had otherwise. No one tripped and fell off to what would have been their swift deaths. So it all went great.
That's always a good story. Maybe not one to do too often, but it's
Well, no one was hurt. No, there was no lawsuits or medical evacuations or cops called. So all's well that ends well, right?
uh, so yeah.
So what do we have for announcements this week, Tim?
We have a couple. So we did finally finish that release that we did last week, where I couldn't yet
Excellent.
show you all the full details, but I can show you now. So I'll be doing so. I've not had the best of luck with screen share, so we're gonna see if this works today.
Oh, that's funny. So yesterday I was Tim and I were doing the advanced open rewrite training, and Zoom was not cooperating with Tim even a little bit. He would share his screen, and it looks like he's made it back. Tim, I was just telling the good people about your experiences with Zoom, because that was so the comedic timing on that was very good to be like, I hope this works, and then drop from the call. And it was very much like when you're trying to share your screen during our webinar during our class yesterday, and it was like Zoom was like, you can share your screen once, and if you
Only once.
try if you try again, I'm not going to do it. I'm not. You get a blank square and nothing else. So but Tim, ready to adapt and pivot on his feet, found natural breaks in the conversation when to leave and rejoin the call and refresh his allotment of screen share from 0 back to 1. So we managed to get through it with
It's
minimal disruption.
it's a worrying sign where you're trying to figure out how you can show PowerPoint slides from IntelliJ just so you can only share a single screen.
Yeah, yeah. I was saying we got to get you just like a little. I know you get your nice 4K monitor that you like to do your work on. We got to get you just like a little 1080p monitor just for screen sharing, so that you can share an entire screen that will fit people's aspect ratios.
I can't say I've not considered it. It's just I've held off on having like one ugly corner of screen
I
sharing.
get it. I get it.
But yeah, no, we're back. I can share my screen probably only once on this call again.
We better make it count.
But yeah, But I can say that we finished that release, and as always, we put this out on Blue Sky, we put it on X, and give you a quick run through. And I thought I'd highlight just a few very small things. So the one is the top one that I'm quite pleased with, the parsing of Helm templates, where for the longest time we had folks complaints that they have a YAML file. It is pretty much YAML, but it only contains like one placeholder in some curly braces. And that, of course, tripped up our parser. But no more. Through the magic of Claude Code, we now have support for replacing those elements just before we parse and then replacing them again, such that you can actually now parse those files properly and do the recipe manipulations that you're after for any kind of Terraform or Kubernetes Helm template files. So pretty pleased to have that. On the same theme, we also have a lot of fixes for our Groovy parsing. So if you previously weren't able to parse your build Gradle file and as a result weren't able to run OpenRewrite at all, or you had a project written in Groovy that wasn't able to take full effect of the parser because of some gaps in the coverage there, we now have much better support. So that's already partly out. It's going to be fully released by next week's release, but that should see a lot of improvements for projects that had problems before. Now, we've also done some improvements on or extended the coverage of our AssertJ best practices recipes, such that we can now handle assertions on dates and on instance and a few other cases that weren't covered and can now be transferred to the fullest extent of what you can do with expressive AssertJ assertions.
As AssertJ's biggest fan, I assume those were contributions that you personally made. Is that right, Tim?
Absolutely, yes.
Knew it.
And all of them are refaster style recipes, of course, because it's so trivial to have like a before and after and a test associated with them. So pretty much just
very nice.
Having some weekend open source fun, which I don't get to do often enough. So. And then beyond that, we also get contributions from our wider open source community. And one of them I quite like, which is that simplify annotation attributes. And if you're wondering what does that look like, I can show you that on a not so random open source project. Where here we have a project where they have a annotation. It has that value attribute on there. And if you're wondering like what would it look like if you run this recipe, then you actually inline that value attribute. And we do that all over the place, of course. And even if you have like a nested annotation with that assignment, we're just going to figure out that you can do so still. So pretty neat, nifty, small improvement that you can run on your project. And probably every project will already have some fixes associated with this.
Are you going to add that to common static analysis? It feels like a common static analysis candidate.
I think we can add it. Like we've ran it against, of course, all the OpenRewrite and modern repositories already. We saw no issues whatsoever there. So I think we can now confidently add it to our common static analysis to get these types of improvements.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah. And then also new is that we added a lot of additional recipes to the recipe catalog. You can see here that every time we do a release, we now log the total number of recipes that we have. And this number is already hopelessly outdated because if you look across this, you'll see that we have all those new refaster style recipes. But what it doesn't yet show you is that we also added a couple hundred more C# recipes. So if you switch to the modern platform, you will see that we now have some 4,649 recipes, which you can run through the modern platform, including in no small part C# recipes or JavaScript TypeScript recipes. All included.
Yeah, we had Andrew Stackov on a Code Remix Weekly probably a month or two ago to talk about that. So if you're curious about that subject, go check that out in our back catalog of episodes on YouTube.
Absolutely. So that's been really interesting to see come together, where I know starting out with talking about OpenRewrite, we had a couple hundred recipes, and now we have a couple thousand, adding a couple hundred some weeks. That has been a very nice change, I must say.
Yeah, for sure.
So that is it in terms of updates that I want to take you through for this past week or so. And then with that, I think we can move on to the main topic for this week. And that is we're going to...
Go ahead, Tim. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
For that, we're going to introduce two friends of ours. So that's first up is Karsten and Thoms, and the other is Tim Zöller.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hey
Hi,
guys,
nice meeting you.
nice to see you.
So I'll explain. Like Tim has about a decade or more of experience with BPM, and then Karsten has about as much experience as well, but working with domain-specific languages as well. So welcome both, and yeah, maybe you want to introduce yourself a bit as well.
Yeah, Tim, why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for inviting us. Lovely evening. Yeah, I'm Tim. I'm living near Frankfurt in Germany, doing IT consulting, mainly Java and BPMN for roughly 11 years now, coding in Java since 2008. And yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome, very cool. How about you,
Hi,
Karsten?
I'm Karsten. I live in Dortmund in the middle of Germany.
Oh, nice.
And you're working already since 20 years as a consultant. Got in contact with Java during my studies with version 1.0. And
all right.
stayed with that.
The big 1.0.
Yeah, and yeah, I love to work on open source. Did a lot of work for Eclipse and yeah, projects using Eclipse.
Like on the Eclipse IDE or some of the other projects under the Eclipse banner.
Mostly in the area of Eclipse modeling, where we did the language workbenches for domain-specific languages. But later, I also joined the Eclipse platform project and worked on the core Eclipse IDE.
Cool. Do you still use Eclipse today?
Actually, at the moment, not. It's just depending on what my customer is demanding and how they work.
That makes sense. Use whatever they use in their environment. Absolutely. So I'm kind of curious, since you've been with Java since the beginning, which release was the most disruptive or the most exciting? As a DSL guy, I might imagine that Lambdas would have been a big deal for you, as that makes doing DSLs that are nice easier, I would think. But I'm curious, which of those Java releases really stood out to you?
The first time it was Java 5 actually, introducing generics, and
yeah, that would have been big.
I was working on a large insurance system at the moment, and we had a couple of places where we yeah, could not just use generics, and where generics would have simplified so much, and we simply could not use that. And when we switched to 5, it yeah, all the code base yeah, was yeah, getting much smaller.
And
it makes everything else. Oh, sorry. It makes everything else feel that much worse when you don't have it when you know it is available. It's just you don't have to do anything and you're falling behind. That's the interesting one.
Yeah, but of course then Java 8 and Lambdas was the next thing. Yeah. And many headaches were introduced with Java 9.
For sure. So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about some of the DSLs you've worked on. Every now and then I've cooked up a small DSL, often to make writing unit tests easier for a particular domain. Sometimes I've cursed the authors of some DSL that I'm like, you took totally normal code and made it incomprehensible, or forced me to try and learn something additional to deal in this area. So I'm curious, what of some of the problems that you've run into where it's been like, well, creating a DSL would help for this?
Dependent on the purpose of the DSL. I was often working with more technical DSLs. So if you see yeah, Java code, it was especially back in the days before Lambdas and whatever came in, it was very verbose, and the essence of what you're expressing is so much less. So if you're talking about entities and relationships and forms and whatever, the essence can be expressed in a very dense sense. And I was heavily working with producing code generators, which used the models from the DSLs and produced the actual boilerplate code in Java, HTML, whatever.
I see. That makes sense. So are you these days a fan of like Thrift or Swagger or Open API? Like, do you have favorite code generators or API generators that you still use, or do you find that this is not as necessary anymore with Lombok and some other things?
Actually using the Open API generator, yes. It is a bit complicated and error prone, and also the code base. I do not really like it so much with the Mustache templates. Yeah, we were working on DSLs for code generators, which had more static type checking, and we had lambdas even before Java had that, and also we developed on a language called Extend, which not many people know, but I still like it for creating templates which are much more expressive than what you can use in Mustache or with string blocks. And nowadays it was still advanced to that.
Very cool. So cat just dribbled a little bit of urine on my desk. You're cute, but you're kind of annoying sometimes. It's not his fault. He had medical problems that led to that. Tim, why don't you ask Tim a question, and I'll go get a paper towel real quick.
Yeah, sure. So, Tim, well, of course, we know each other. We've seen each other most of the conferences in Europe. So maybe you want to explain a bit of like what you've presented on and how that drew you to this particular project.
Yeah, sure. In the past, I was so when many people present at conferences, often they start forming a niche. So some kind of topic where they just stick to and iterate on every year. And funny enough, my topics changed a lot between certain things. So I was trying to participate a little bit in Eclipse Microprofile in the beginning when it was still new. Started having some talks about that. And in the last years, I narrowed it down a little bit to database-related talks. So when we met at Spring I/O, I think it was, in Barcelona, I was giving a presentation about database-centric application design using projections with Spring instead of entities for reading, speeding up reads. This was inspired by a project I had where we started out with mapping everything to entities, also with reading. And this worked until we went public at a large part of the customer. And they told us, we're really sorry, but the search query timed out after 10 minutes. And then we rebuilt it to projections, and we went it down to 300 milliseconds. So that's usually my talks were inspired by things I saw at the customer, at the client, which just worked. And my latest non-BPMN and non-Operaton related task was about bitemporal history in databases. So having two time dimensions, MariaDB supports this out of the box. And I did a small comparison on how you can build this with stored procedures and triggers in Postgres by yourself, and why having it as a native database feature is a little nicer to use.
Okay, that sounds cool, but I don't understand. Why would you want multiple temporal dimensions? Are you a time traveler, Tim? Are you Doctor Who?
I cannot tell you about that, but I can. So one of the temporal axes usually is the transaction time. So you want to know what your data looked like at a certain point in time, which can be some kind of snapshot of the database 2 years ago. And the other dimension is valid time. So from which point in time to which point is your data set valid? And for example, your employment status. Since when were you working at your employer? And maybe it is open-ended right now, which I would hope for you. And but maybe maybe you were terminated in between or rehired at some point. So your employment status has multiple validities. And when you combine that, then you can say, okay, which validity was assumed at which point in time? And maybe if you have a data entry error, which validity was real? Can you rewrite that back in time? For maybe this is important for payroll applications. Little hard to visualize just with words for me, but I think you get the idea.
Yeah, it sounds like this would be an auditor's dream, that to have this information about the status of the data and the analysis built on top of that throughout time for whatever data source you were working with. Yeah, and also an auditor, just a debugger, right? Why am I getting this weird result out of the database? Being able to go look and see how it changed over time. That sounds very useful. Yeah. So you guys at Operaton have been going through a big Java 17 upgrade and migration. Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about the impetus for that? Like, why upgrade at all? Isn't Java 8 good enough? And we just heard from Karsten that that lambdas are really cool for DSLs, right? So you can just stay on Java 8 forever, right?
Yes, you could stay with what you have. Some would call it stable, but I think it's important for a project to keep alive, to keep moving with the flow of events, and to regular modernize an application. And if you do not do this, it will over the time just deteriorate and get worse and worse. And, until you get into a state where nobody tries to touch anything.
Yeah, ossify, harden, and become unchangeable. Yeah, I see that one of the kind of core disciplines of a software engineer is building for change in anticipation that the code base will continue to be able to change and not gnarl and harden into one particular shape that no one can successfully touch or modify. And keeping up to date with the technologies you build upon is definitely a big part of that. You could definitely, otherwise you can easily get into a situation where you're using, known vulnerable libraries, and that can be hard to defend when things go bad. So when you guys were beginning to undertake your Java 17 upgrade and migration, how big of a problem is this? How big of a code base are we talking about? How many modules? How gnarled the dependency graph between them? Just what were you looking at when you're approaching this problem to begin with?
Just to give you some numbers, so we're talking about a code base which we inherited from Camunda, which itself is a fork from Activity, which overall has a history of 15 years. And so over the time, many things have changed and evolved, and the code base got bigger and bigger. And overall, we have in the core project 1 million lines of code with more than 10,000 files, mostly in Java.
All right. And so what we're oh, go ahead, Tim. Are you saying something?
And about the Maven Pro modules, I have to admit I never counted them, but I would estimate with submodules it's at least 30, Karsten?
Much more than that.
Much more, right? Yeah. Okay. So it's a monorepo. It has the engine core, and then there is the Spring Boot starter. There is the Quarkus extension. There is the npm front-end build. Naturally. There is the Wildfly module, the Tomcat distribution. So it's everything in one.
Little bit of everything. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what were some of the challenges you ran into working on this?
Challenges first is what to keep, what to change.
Yeah.
And one of the things where we early decided what we want to change and not support anymore is the support of old Java EE containers like Tomcat 9 and Wildfly 26, which were the last Java EE containers. And the code base had both versions, so Java EE and Jakarta EE in ones, and they transformed on the fly during the build modules from Java EE API to Jakarta EE, which you usually.
So is this like a bytecode manipulation with like ASM or something like that?
It is just with rewrite scripts and plugins. Yeah, so usually what you do just once and not with each build, and of course you have some limitations if you do this. And this made the build and so very complicated and also long running. And we decided early to get rid of that because no one would use our product with that old application containers. And we wanted to just support the new stuff and upgrade everything what we could. Other challenges were just it's an old code base, and if you open it up, you will get flooded with warnings during the build and in the IDE, and you do not see what is important and what not. Most things are not important, but one of the first things that we did is to set up static code analysis. Setting up a Sonar cube and run our code base against that, and then we saw that we have thousands of warnings. Not critical. We have to say the code base for its age is impressive good state. Especially the test coverage was overwhelming. We have more than 25,000 test cases running on that code base, and they cover really much stuff. So we have coverage roughly at 70% code coverage, which is for an open source project that's really impressive. And that's what we just inherited, and also the state of the tests were quite good. So they had to right granularity. They were executing fast because they used mocking quite much. And
it's a big benefit to any migration effort to have some tests that actually work reasonably well, so that you can change things and then be pretty confident you haven't messed things up thanks to the test pass. Sometimes tests are seen or even can be an impediment to changing or evolving a code base, but most of the time, or at least if they're kind of done right or done in a useful way, it can help you to change with confidence to have that good suite of tests. Yeah, absolutely.
And this was true for the unit tests. What a thing we struggled with were the integration tests, because the upstream project had custom Jenkins runners with databases installed. So they had a Jenkins runner for SQL Server, for Postgres, for MySQL, for MariaDB. And the configuration of those runners was not open source. So the configuration was not publicly available. It was just a private Jenkins instance nobody could access, or at least we couldn't access. So there were two ways to do it: either build up our own Jenkins and do the same, or just remove everything and rebuild the whole integration tests to using test containers.
Is that what you chose to do?
Yes. Yes. I would not have mentioned the nicer option, and then
I mean, hey, every now and then, you talk to someone involved in consulting or an engineer who's like, we know what we wanted to do, but for some reason we couldn't, so we had to do the worst thing instead.
Yeah. No, luckily we were able to choose test containers. Also great tool for QA and integration testing. And adjusting all the databases was a little complicated because SQL Server does not play nice with test containers. Funny enough, I was giving a presentation about Operaton in Bonn at the Java user group, and one guy approached me and said, "Hey, I'm on the Hibernate core team. We have a config for SQL Server test containers. Just take a look at this file and just take it." So, power of community.
That helps.
Yeah.
And in the end, we even had to integrate test containers with Aquilion lifecycles because the Wildfly and I think also the Tomcat tests are using Aquilion. Yeah, so we learned a lot about Aquilion and the lifecycle there.
That's the things you don't expect to do on a weekend. That's definitely the case.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, we're still working on just getting all the tests that are there just running. So we have, for example, at the moment the challenge to do the database upgrade tests. So they have rolling database upgrades and testing patches, and that the tests are working with a newer scheme with an older code base. So this is already there, and we have to make this work. And we're currently storing it also there for the other databases besides H2. So we have to spin up there test containers or other or the containers otherwise to run these tests also for the other databases. And we're still not ready with that.
Well, yeah, progress happens in fits and starts sometimes. Yeah. So, so just to follow up on what you were talking about earlier with the Sonar Cube and code quality, after you brought in the static analysis tool and had it start showing you that you had these thousands of warnings, how did you translate that into action? I've definitely seen it before at various companies that they've got a Sonar Cube or a Coverity or a Spot Bugs, and they ignore the reports because, like, well, these are thousands of low quality issues. I have something better to do with my time, and so a lot of money gets spent on the subscription for this static analysis tool that everyone ignores every year.
This is where I mainly got on a mission and said, okay, I want to work on that. I do not know too much about the engine itself and how it works, but what I do is how to refactor all code, and also love to do this. So I always consider me as a software archaeologist, and like Indiana Jones, there's beauty in old stuff, and you can just polish it and make it great again. So I always compared Operaton like finding a sports car, an old sports car Ferrari in an old garage or so, and full of rubbish and dust and rust and so. And you could either decide just going to the washing street, or get it through it once, and that's okay, or you can do the restoration and make it to the star of the next automotive fair.
Yeah, that's fun. There's actually just a block from me. They do an annual old car show where people like to bring out and display all of their the old gems that they have in their garages. I'll see if they'll allow me to enter the Operaton code base in that next year.
But to be fair, when we are talking about modernizing and cleaning up, the whole state of affair made sense for Camunda when we inherited that code base.
Sure.
Because they have a lot of customers in banking and insurance who are very, very keen on having stable software.
Yep.
So we are now the cool, hip open source project that just doesn't have to care about that, or decided not to care about that in this manner. So we don't need Java 8 backwards compatibility. We don't need to provide Java EE container support. But if Camunda had decided to move that fast, I think they might have lost customers. So we did modernize it. I think the code base is better and cleaner now, but it's also just a different philosophy and a different focus.
What kind of led you to that different philosophy? Like, how did you decide that was the way to go, to set down some of the old things, to refurbish some of the old parts in ways that may not have been strictly backwards compatible?
I think one part was just necessity, because we are not a software company. We are a free open source project. So we don't have full-time employees working on that.
Right.
And we need to decide where to spend our time.
Yeah.
And we talked about finding a rule so that we just don't start dropping support for things left and right without any reason. So we agreed on, and I think this is still the agreed on case, that we should not provide support or maintenance for things that the vendor themselves don't have any open source maintenance anymore. So, for example, Spring Boot 2, there are still paid support cases for that, but the open source version of that is end of life. So we decided to not provide maintenance for that because, we don't have access to the paid bug fixes and security vulnerabilities, and we cannot take care of them.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we and when OpenRewrite we do have to support Java 8 for for most recipes and the core framework, since we want to be able to help migrate the old things to the new things, and so that leads to maybe a little bit of irony in that our tool for modernizing is itself in some ways stuck in the past a little bit, but that them's the breaks, right?
But we do try to at least get some pleasure out of the recipes that we develop ourselves by at the very least upgrading our tests periodically to newer Java versions.
Oh,
our tests at least are Java 21 right now, probably 25 soon.
It would be so painful to not have multi-line strings in the OpenRewrite unit tests.
I can imagine, yes.
Yeah, we had one customer who didn't know how to set up their project to have they needed Java 8 for the recipes they were developing in-house, and didn't know how to configure Maven to use Java 17 for the tests. So there were so many string concatenations. It was just very hard to work in those unit tests. So yeah, how is OpenRewrite figured into to this modernization of Operaton?
So when you see the findings of from Sonar Cube for static code analysis, then many things are quite repetitive, and what I figured out is that I heard of OpenRewrite and tried it and started to like it also. What I just did is to go from the top to the bottom, where do we have the most issues uncovered by Sonar, and many of these things are automatically changeable by OpenRewrite, and usually I just looked at the Sonar rule, and they have all keys, and I just entered this to OpenRewrite and looked if there's a recipe for that. And then I tried this recipe to run on the code base. Sometimes I saw, okay, maybe it's a bit too much what it changes on the whole code base, and the pull requests are just really large, and then I boiled it down again, and got into the mode where I said, okay, I just applied on module by module, and recipe by recipe, and not running just the composite ones. And because then you just see, okay, everything changes, and you cannot really judge what actually changed.
It could make for an overwhelming PR to review for sure, particularly on a large monolith. I think the largest change list I ever personally authored was it had like 6,000 individual files touched across a monolithic code base at Tableau Software, and it was when I had foolishly and stubbornly decided that I was going to upgrade the version of check style that code base used to a new version, and no new rules or anything, but just like bug fixes in check style from the old version of it we were on meant that it was detecting the new version detected a bunch of violations for the old rules that the older version wasn't detecting, and so to do that upgrade successfully, I had to fix or suppress thousands of violations, and OpenRewrite would have been really handy at that time, but this was pre OpenRewrite that I was working on that. So I'm just hearing echoes of that experience and what you're talking about. So that's cool.
Yeah,
so, go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
And of course, the neat thing now is if you look at the change list for Operaton, you can see that exact history reflected in all the commits that Karsten has been doing. So you can see how he picks out like small individual elements of just a fix and applies that broadly. And I know a lot of them I sort of recognize as things that we can maybe have had some help with to bring those to fruition. But it is really nice to see that list of just small incremental fixes, manageable in a review because it's just one isolated change, and then from there, see the new reality. So.
And I think the Maven multi-module project came in really handy because you have just natural cut. I think I remember the first time you applied such recipes, you applied them to the whole code base at once. And we quickly agreed that there were a few thousand files too many for a pull request review. So
yeah, that could be one of the challenges with affecting change at scale, whether it's on an open source project or within a company, is getting people to merge the pull request. And it's easy to overwhelm reviewers with overly large pull requests. We often have customers or prospective customers or just prospective users who are like, I want to, from a central location, just push out an upgrade from Java 8 to 21 across all our repositories and all our code bases. And it's like, okay, like the recipe will get you most of the way there. Won't get you all the way there, and regardless, those teams aren't going to accept your pull requests. I mean, some of them might, but a lot of them are not. You know, you have a lot of software engineers who want to protect their fief. You know, are busy with their own things, and even a helpful PR, helpfully intended PR from the outside, is first and foremost a disruption. So we've often found that the best way to affect change is to get people to make the changes themselves and just make it really easy for them to do so by paving and automating that path as much as possible. So with this effort to break down the static code remediation fixes into manageable chunks, do we have a chart or a visual that we could show of what your list of Sonar Cube issues looked like before and after you went through this effort?
I think, Tim, you had this already open, right?
Yes, I have the graph. I have the graph opened and can try and share.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I can just share the whole screen. Oh no, it allows me to select. So this is
Tim and I fighting over who gets to add it to the stage, but we got it up there now.
Yes. The graph from the very beginning, from almost the very beginning, from November 2nd, with 16,212 issues to 2,840 now. Oh, the spike's
That's a lot better.
Yes, and I think for most of the issues, there weren't critical issues, so they were not bugs or anything like that.
Right.
But yeah, so you already said, people tend to ignore Sonar and lie to themselves that the issues are not that important and it's just minor issues. Sure. And yeah, code smells. We take care of them when we have the time. But I think the maintainability and readability of the code base just really increased. I don't really have a way to filter about on which type of issue we had.
Sure.
But after the first raising the version to Java 17, we had a lot of issues which were just, you can do this better in Java 17. Right. You can do this better in Java 14. Right. So a lot of the changes were just modernized the code to modern patterns, which were enabled by the more modern Java version.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's quite a few things in the OpenRewrite Java migrations about that. You know, using the multi-line strings. You know, using get first or get last on collections, etc., etc. And it's one of the best ways to have an idiomatic code base, and it's a bit of a tautology, but is to have an idiomatic code base, is people will naturally kind of try to match the style of the code they're operating in a lot of the time. So if you have code that is substantially beholden to old conventions or old styles, people will tend to replicate those old styles as they make patches or adjustments. And so, if you bring things up to the kind of newer standard, well, then naturally, bits of code that are copied and pasted around or used as reference when making a similar change can benefit from that. So you can get into either a vicious cycle or hopefully a virtuous cycle where more modernization begets more modernization.
There's an interesting peak here we see here.
I am curious about that peak.
Yeah. And actually, it is because one of our contributors was heavily working on the migration of JUnit 4 test cases to JUnit 5. And one of the issues that Sonar is complaining about is if you have unnecessary public modifiers. And this was just left. And then once his changes were committed, Sonar picked that up, and then you say, okay, no, we introduced here 1,000 or 2,000 new issues, stupid issues, and then you see the peak going down. It's just running one OpenRewrite script.
Yep. Yep, I know the one you're talking about for removing unnecessary public modifiers from JUnit tests. Yeah, very nice. So now I imagine with less than 5,000 of these warnings in a million-line code base, that when a warning does pop up, whether from SonarQube or the Java compiler or your IDE in a particular source file, it stands out a lot more than it would have before amidst a sea of yellow warnings everywhere, which in my experience, at least in IntelliJ, I'm in the habit of hitting the F2 key to hop between warnings and just fix all of them in whatever source file I'm in, unless there's too many where I'm like, I can't be bothered I'm not here to fix 50 of these, right? So it kind of gets back into that virtuous cycle. If there's 2 or 3 warnings, I'll just fix them as I go. If there's 50, ignore them entirely until there's a recipe to clean that up. So I wonder if that comports with your experience.
To mine, sure, because I'm distracted easily while writing code.
Yeah.
And when you're looking for a bug and then you open a source file and this has a runnable in it, and IntelliJ just does this squiggly yellow underlining, and you hover your mouse over it and say, this could be Lambda now, couldn't it? I said, but I'm not here to do that now, but it distracts me every time.
Yeah.
I know that all too well, because to me, of course, if I see that on a pull request, I either think I should run the recipe or I should write the recipe, and then half an hour later, you get back to what you were actually doing, which was reviewing that one line of code, and then move on to the next one, and then you see again something that you kind of want to automate away. So it's an interesting challenge.
And it's not only we that we are distracted. It's also our users, our contributors, and no one wants to read ugly code or even contribute to that. But if you have nice written code, then the willing to contribute something is much higher, and we are trying to attract people to help us to work on the code base and get it into an even better state, and that we have our code base clean, so clean code, and also everything which is there is written well and documented well and tested well, and by doing this we will get more people helping us.
Yeah, good idea. So if we did have anyone watching today who was interested in contributing or looking at contributing, what would your advice for them to be? Where should someone new to the Operaton code base maybe get started, or might be a promising area for outside contribution? Any recommendations?
That's quite easy. First of all, we try to raise some good first issues, and yeah, these are really easy stuff, which we usually would also just take 5 to 10 minutes to fix them. But we want to that people can work also on fixing easy stuff and getting first success feelings with the code base. It's not necessary to dig into deeper problems in the engine itself or fix concurrency issues or whatever. That's not necessary. I always recommend starting with the first with the easy things and just fix bugs, make things cleaner, increase code coverage, write tests, document stuff. And this is helping. That's not the superpower work that you need there, but getting into a code base is easiest if you just do simple stuff or working on tests. So if you go through the tests, then you understand also way more what the code is actually doing.
Yeah, I often feel that I don't understand a code base until I debug problems in it. No amount of reading code for me beats fixing one bug in it. Because to fix one bug, you've got to figure out how to run it. You've got to figure out what to run to reproduce a particular thing, which gives you a lot of insight into the relationships between the components. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. So you've talked about how have you used OpenRewrite during the migration. What were some of the challenges you ran into? What were some of the like new recipes? Did you have to create new recipes of your own? Have you guys both written OpenRewrite recipes of your own now?
Yes, a bit. I contributed small stuff to OpenRewrite, especially in the testing area, because one of the biggest challenges was, or still is, the migration of all JUnit 4 test cases to JUnit 5. This was a massive thing that we had to do. Especially there also I had some challenges because you could not just run the JUnit 4 to 5 migration recipe, which does a lot of good things, but not everything is translatable from
custom JUnit 4 rules. Yeah.
Yes, and there are a lot of usages of those rules, and you have to understand what they're doing, and especially if you have rules with dependencies between each other, and this is just what you have to do manually, and what OpenRewrite just did is partially migrate stuff and left the code base in uncompilable state then. We had to do manual things and translate the rules to JUnit 5 extensions, and then slowly getting into a state where OpenRewrite scripts actually could do what they should do, and and also we had problems with dependencies between in which order you have to execute recipes. For example, we wanted to migrate to SOJ for assertions to have a more fluent style, and especially get rid of JUnit 4 assertions. JUnit 5 assertions would be okay, but you could not run the necessary recipes because they require
assume JUnit 5.
And there we have a chicken egg problem.
Yeah, for sure.
We have been known to, in some cases, chain recipes back to back. So while we don't have a migration from Java util logging to log4j2, we do have a recipe to go from Java util logging to SLF4j, and then from there to log4j2. So if you can find an intermediate stepping stone, as you will, then you can make it work to some extent.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think we're coming pretty close to the end of our time here today. Do we have any maybe a last question for them, Tim?
Yeah, mostly I know you've also, of course, forked Camunda into Operaton, and you're working on the process of allowing folks to more easily switch to Operaton. which is of course something very close to our heart as well. And I think a very good use case. Could you describe a bit about that process that you have and what would be needed for folks to adopt the new Shiny BPM project that you're running?
So our ideal vision is that that the users who want to migrate from Camunda 7 to Operaton just run our OpenRewrite recipe we are also maintaining. You asked where contributors can start helping out. So considering the audience we have here, we have a recipe to help customers, users to migrate from Camunda to OpenRewrite to Operaton. Thanks, Tim, for your pull request from today. By the way, great stuff.
That's what I do.
And I have to say some of the challenges we had there is to consider what the recipe should do and what the recipe should leave in place. So
yeah,
that was or still is a fun thing to consider. Usually, I think 95% of users will have included the Camunda bomb and do the dependency management there. But can we assume that? Or what happens to the other 5% that decided, for whatever reasons, to not do this?
Right.
And I think we had the earliest contact with Merlin from Modernized 2. And we had some ideas, and he said, you don't want to do that, because then you might break people's code base by doing something that is not necessary to migrate. You're just assuming things to be helpful, but they might be harmful to some people. And this was a new way of thinking we had to adapt for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for coming on today, guys. Really interesting to hear about your experiences with this code base and running another big open source project and using OpenRewrite on it. And yeah, thanks for spending the time with us. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for inviting us.
It
was my pleasure too.
Excellent. Thanks. All right. Well, I think we'll end the stream there for today. Goodbye, everyone. And thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Absolutely. See you next week. Cheers.
See you next week. Thanks, Karsten.